Hi, it's Joe Morgan with the Tech Leader Spotlight podcast, where we interview tech leaders to learn about their journey and leadership lessons learned along the way. This show is brought to you by the No Regret Money Plan created for smart tech professionals who know they're doing well, but aren't certain if it's enough. We help you invest cash wisely, make the most of stock awards, minimize your tax bill, and create clarity and confidence so you can spend less time worrying about your money and more time living the life you want. If you'd like more information, look me up on LinkedIn. That's Joe Morgan at Best Financial Life. Today on our podcast, I'm very excited. We have George Wang, who's a software engineer at Meta. And George is an experienced leader who specializes in building software at massive scale. Thanks for joining us today, George.
Yeah, good to be here. Always a pleasure.
Great. So building software at massive scale, tell me what that means to you.
Yeah, so I think people have different meanings. Usually the standard meaning, I guess for me as well, is a lot of people use your software. That's essentially what it is. I worked at multiple tech companies. Was at Amazon. A lot of people bought stuff off Amazon. And same thing with Facebook, right? Just everyone uses Facebook or Meta's family of products. So that's kind of what I mean by massive scale. Yeah.
So massive scale just means that like the delivery is massive. Is that the
Yeah, I
idea?
guess it's multiple things. And maybe the delivery, the audience is massive, and also in terms of the I guess infrastructure behind it to serve those people. But actually, that doesn't have to be massive. People who are very smart about their jobs can do a lot with very little. For example, my previous job, it was a startup. We were able to serve a lot of customers without having an extremely high infrastructure bill. Obviously, you had to not cut corners, but be smart about your decisions and trade-offs back then. Whereas companies like Meta and Amazon, they have so much revenue behind them, they can afford to throw a lot of infrastructure and money towards a problem. So you focus more on building the software and less worrying about the infrastructure and the costs related to those components.
That's interesting. So you've been on both sides of the fence. So what do you think is the biggest challenge to building on a massive scale?
Yeah, also it depends on where you work. So with companies that have a lot of money, the challenge really all about getting the best software you can out there to as many people as possible, and then having the best product experience. Whereas with smaller companies, you don't have that so much money behind you. A lot of it comes down to trying to save money while still delivering the performance that people would expect from your software. Remember from my last job, I remember spending a lot of time, maybe half of my time almost, just trying to figure out how to make this very efficient in terms of cost. Whereas Meta, no one really thinks about it, that they're just like, let's build the best product possibly can. And behind it is a crazy amount of money. So sort the infrastructure. So I do like that more because I don't have to worry so much about the saving the money. But saving the money actually is very important. I think almost every company do that. It's just that for the particular companies that I talk about, they have just enough weight behind them. That's not as big of a problem.
Yeah, it's probably
Yeah.
being done at some level, but at certain levels, it's like, let's try to do something really ostentatious, like really great, and not worry about that so much. But like at a different level, it's like, okay, here's what this we expect this to look like. That's what I would imagine.
Yeah, you're totally right. So with any company, there's multiple software stacks. So the stack I'm working on right now, I don't worry about the money, but I know on the other stacks would actually do the lower level stuff. They spend as much time as possible trying to get the cost as optimized as possible. So
Yeah.
yeah, of course, the optimization I can do on my left side as well, but I don't think about it so much because that's offloaded to another set of engineers or many great engineers at different levels of the stack. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's interesting. So you've worked at small companies, big companies, you worked, on different types of products.
Mm.
So I'm really interested to get this answer from you. One of the questions we ask all of our guests, what does leadership in the tech space mean to you?
Yeah, this is actually interesting. I thought about it before as well. I read a really good quote. I think it might be paraphrasing. It says, managers are great when things are good because they make things more efficient, and leaders are great when things are chaotic because they bring organization to chaos. So I think with leadership, a lot of times, especially at startups, it's about bringing like organization to chaos because there's so much stuff happening. People have to figure out how to make forward progress in a way that's good for everyone. And I think some people kind of cheat a bit. I say this kind of tongue in cheek because they've had experience of kind of chaos in the past, so they kind of know what to do. So what might seem like magic to other people, they actually just know like what will work generally, and then steer people in the right direction. But again, it's kind of like a skill that has to be acquired through, I guess, experience. Because I have a lot of many managers who are great when things are calm, but when things are more chaotic, they're less effective. I've seen that happen multiple times. Even people who are extremely good people managers and great, people to talk to, they just don't quite have that, I guess, experience as well. I don't think I have all the experience either. It's just I can see that happening, and I realize, you need the right people and the right mindset to tackle those challenges.
Yeah, I really like
Yeah.
that phrasing. Leaders bring organization to chaos. And I mean, that's a very high level statement, but then in the details, it gets really dirty, right? Is it a big team? Is it a small team? What's the attitude of the team? What's the goal? And how likely is it you'll accomplish the goal? And like putting all of those things together in a way to keep people moving forward, it's got to be difficult.
Yeah, actually, I saw that quote applied to the I guess armed forces because in the army during wartime, you need a lot of leaders because things are very chaotic. But during peacetime, you don't need leaders of that sort. You just need people who can manage a giant, I guess, bureaucracy that can keep pushing everything, doing the thing you want. But during combat, right, everything's definitely chaotic. So someone has to take charge and then be able to take the right decisions, even with a lot of risks going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So which do you prefer? Do you prefer to being in combat or peacetime?
It's interesting. I think being peacetime is what everyone wants. But with self-engineering, I feel like it gets kind of boring if it's always like that. I feel it's always good to challenge yourself and have a little bit of mixture of both. And I think at my current company, it's actually it's good because they figure out a lot of the fundamental problems that seem solved over and over again. Other companies, they're solved super well. And now you can focus on the more chaotic stuff that people usually don't get to. And those are interesting challenges. And I do like that. But yeah, looking back in my career, there's so many times where people try to solve the same problem, and then it turns out that there's actually really, really good solutions to them already, that people either weren't aware of them or weren't mature enough to adopt them for their day to day. So that's
Ah,
what I think. Yeah.
weren't mature enough to adopt them. That's a very polite way to say they didn't want to bruise their own ego, right?
It's interesting. I mean, I worked at so many different companies. I think every company I've been to, like the engineer culture it's been better than the one before. But in my
Yeah,
earlier careers, it's actually it's been terrible. It's just like to say that. My first few jobs I've worked, engineering culture was nowhere near where I am. It's just the Wild West. And there's so
yeah,
many problems looking back that could be easily solved if you were just more mature about it in general.
yeah,
Me as well, because I was not mature back then. But just the people who were in charge were very I don't know, just like not the same level as they are now. I guess it's also with time, age, experience. 20 years in the industry, everyone gets levels up, hopefully. So maybe I have a different perspective now than I did back then. So
I was gonna say, I feel like I have the same experience, but you're right. Maybe it's just because we're older now than we were.
yeah, it's true. I remember going through school as a kid, and then in school, like everyone, I'm like, man, everyone's so mean to you. But as you get older, everyone gets better and better because realize being mean to everyone else is actually a not great way to to exist in school. So I think everyone just get more mature over time. Maybe that's the same with your career progression. As you get
Yeah.
better, you find people who are similar to you. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. Well, let's shift gears and talk about something that is really mean that's going on in the industry, and that's layoffs, right? Happening across many different companies and more often than we'd all like to see. And one of the things about a layoff, I don't know if you've ever been through a layoff, I have, and what happens is it comes out of the blue. Like there's no way that you really know it's coming when it affects you. And so one of the questions I'd like to ask is, what is something that a person can do while they're working, while they have a job, to continue to perform at their job, but also to at the same time prepare themselves in case they do find themselves laid off?
Yeah, that's super true. Looking back at my career, someone said this, and I feel it's very true looking back at the last, decade plus, is that being good at interviews is probably the best skill you will ever have at your job. And that's true, because just looking back at my career, every time I switched jobs, I've made significantly more money than I did at the previous job. And all the worries and whatever I had that job would just kind of push away into the next job. But that comes with its own set of problems. But I think just being good at interviews is very important. I know the interviews landscape changed a lot recently because back in my day, well, shouldn't say that. It's still happening now. There's a lot of grinding of like coding, but I realized that's actually not what's important going forward because those kind of things are not what makes you successful as an engineer or even in interviews. And then
Mhm.
with the rise of AI, a lot of the technologies have changed. So the way to prepare for interviews is also different. So I really just say interview is probably the number one thing that everyone should like always have constant practice. In fact, I have a calendar invite for myself every so often to practice my soft skills and also technical skills. So I'm always up to date in case I ever need to do that. That's the first one. Second one to say is that really like just having like, depends on your level too, having good soft skills is actually extremely important later on in your career. Because I think going forward with AI, AI can do a lot of stuff that people just out of college could do. But what you can do is have a nice conversation with someone else, convince them it's a good direction, and then also like collaborate. And that is the thing that I think will set people apart. And if that's something that I think everyone should really focus on, especially with development of AI coming up. That's
Yeah,
my take.
those are two great tips. And so being good at soft skills, improving that. I have heard that before, and I think that's a really good consistent answer. Being good at interviews, I have not heard that before, but it makes so much sense, right? Because if you're good at interviews, then you're good at conversation, you're good at perhaps persuasion, you're good at a lot of things that you need in your everyday life and your everyday job. But also, of course, if you're laid off, guess what? You're going to be interviewing, right?
Yeah, and I think my best tip for that is actually just do a lot of interviews on the other side. Because my previous companies, I've done a ton of interviews, like hundreds of interviews, and that really gave me the confidence once being interviewed myself. Because I see all the people go through that. First time it's nerve-wracking for other people to be interviewed, but once you do it like hundreds of times, you understand the general mistakes people make. You try to avoid them to making them yourself, and that's actually really the best way I think to practice interviewing in like every aspect. Of course, everyone needs like an open mind. I've seen people go through the same thing over and over again with no like change in how they want to approach things, and then eventually the learning just kind of falls off. It just becomes routine. Happened to me too after a certain point. But like I think initially it's a huge step for everybody to like in terms of career growth and also like soft skills.
Terrific. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, our last topic. If you could go back in time just 5 years and give yourself some advice, what would it be?
Oh, I will probably be like go all in on Nvidia, buy all
Do
the
you know
stuff.
how many times I've heard that answer?
I don't know, but yeah, I was looking at my stock now. I put way more money into other stocks than Nvidia. Nvidia has went up so much that like they actually outpaces the other money I put in. But again, this is a bet, right? Like you have no idea. So, but
Yeah.
I think in terms of like actionable advice, it's probably to exercise more. Because I read this too. I'm getting older now, right? I think I'm okay. I won't tell you my age, but I'm older now. So I think someone said like you realize you have two lives. One's before you realize you're like you're gonna die, and once you realize you're gonna die. So once you realize hey you have limited time left in this world, you actually prioritize your time more, and you try to do more for yourself. And I think exercise is a really good way to like make yourself feel healthier and then live as long and as well as possible. Because I didn't really think of that when I was younger, but now I realize everything's decaying structure. You gotta like power back up because what's good is like infinite money if you like can't be there to enjoy it. So exercise is definitely a key. Yeah.
Wow, that's another great nugget. Thanks so
Thanks.
much, George. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Your perspective on being good at interviews and exercising, two really good ones, and something that we probably don't hear about often enough. So I'm grateful that you were here. Just as
Oh,
a reminder, this is sponsored by the No Regret Money Plan, where tech leaders gain clarity and control of their finances so they can live out the rest of their life with intention. If you want to know more about us, look me up on LinkedIn, Joe Morgan at Best Financial Life. Thanks, George.
yeah. Thanks so much. Yeah.